Shalom in the name of Yehoshua HaMashiach, and welcome to this video, which is another video on the issue of the feasts of Torah. So I have argued, and I still stand by my argument, that we cannot keep the feasts in the way in which Yah has commanded us to keep the feasts. And this is because Yah commanded that when Yah revealed the feasts to Israel, he said that there were sacrifices that involved. They centered around sacrifices. For example, Passover, unleavened bread revolves around the sacrifice of the Passover, which is the lamb or the goat. And so we can't make sacrifices today because there is no altar in the most holy place in Jerusalem. So my argument is we can't keep the feasts. Now it's been pointed out that there is some evidence that the children of Israel in captivity, in the first captivity, may well have had some kind of remembrance of the feasts, even though they weren't actually keeping the feasts, strictly speaking. And yeah, there is some evidence for this. This is in the book of Tobit, which is considered apocryphal by Protestants, but accepted as scripture by many other groups. But the point is that it does give us a historical perspective concerning the children of Israel in exile. And so if we look at the book of Tobit, here it speaks about how in chapter 2 it says, "When I arrived home and my wife Anna and my son Tobias were restored to me at the feast of Pentecost, which is a sacred festival of the 7 weeks, a good dinner was prepared for me and I sat down to eat. Upon seeing the abundance of food, I said to my son, 'Go and bring whatever poor man of our brethren you may find who is mindful of Yah, and I will wait for you.' But he came back and said, 'Father, one of our people has been strangled and thrown into the marketplace.' So before I tasted anything, I sprang up and removed the body to a place of shelter until sunset. And when I returned, I washed myself and ate my food in sorrow. Then I remembered the prophecy of Amos, how he said, 'Your feasts shall be turned into mourning, and all your festivities into lamentation.'" Now this guy Tobit, he understood, we see this from the first chapter, he understood that the Most High had commanded the feasts to be kept in Jerusalem. And as we see in verse 6 of chapter 1, he talks about when he was in the land of Israel, he often went alone to Jerusalem for the feasts, as it is ordained for all Israel by an everlasting decree. So we understood the issue of the feasts only being able to be properly kept in Jerusalem. But it does appear that when he went into captivity, on this occasion, and you'd have to assume that on the occasions of all the feasts, he was having a meal. So the Feast of Pentecost, he was having a meal, and then he connects that meal with a prophecy of Amos speaking about the feasts turning into mourning. So this does provide supporting evidence for the idea that even though we can't strictly speaking keep the feast properly, maybe it could be something that we can do to have some sort of remembrance of the feasts when the feasts are supposed to be taking place. Which leads me to the point of this video, which is, I don't have a problem with this, but then my next question is, when is the correct date? What's the correct biblical calendar? Because anyone who's looked into this a little bit will know that different groups which are claiming to follow Torah have different dates for the feasts. And what I'd like to know is really, what do you guys do? What calendar do you go by? And how are we supposed to know what are the correct calendars to go by so that we can, because if you look at the Torah, the Most High said, "These are the appointed times of Yahweh, set apart gatherings which you are to proclaim at their appointed times." Moedim. So the feasts are actually appointed times, meaning the times which the Most High has set apart in order to do what he's told us to do. So when are these appointed times? How are we supposed to know when these appointed times are? Because if we look at I've got a couple of groups up here online, and we're going to see some differences between them. First of all, this is a rabbinical Jewish site. And they have a list of the holidays, and they have, for example, for let's have a look at Pentecost. For Pentecost or Shavuot, they've got the 9th of June 2008. That's the date when they're going to be celebrating Pentecost. But then there's another group, which is a Karaite group. This is on a Karaite website, and they have for Shavuot the 15th of June, which is like almost a week later than the rabbinical Jews are going to be keeping it. And then we've got this is a Hebrew Israelite website. This is NCCI, and they have Pentecost on they're going to be having it on the 14th of June. So we've got the 14th of June here, this Hebrew Israelite group. We've got the 15th of June, and then we've got the 9th of June. And I'm sure there'll be quite a few other different dates depending on which group we're looking at. So that's my question really. I'd like some feedback, some insights on this, as to when do we keep the feast? What calendar? For example, let's just take Shavuot. Let's just take Pentecost, because that looks like it's going to be the next one in line. What date are you going to be keeping Pentecost? And more wider than that, what calendar do you go by? And any links that you can provide would be much appreciated. I'll be happy to put them in the video description, and maybe we can just get some edification going for everybody who watches this video.